Kathy Stanek Cousins was a 27-year-old woman trapped in a loveless marriage.
She felt tied down. She just didn't want to be married anymore.
Until she took comfort in the arms of her handsome next-door neighbor, Tim Coyle.
She thought Tim could be the knight in shining armor.
Their mutual attraction quickly sparked an obsessive affair.
The relationship was very hot and sensual.
They were madly in love.
But the lovers' neighborhood fling would ultimately lead to tragedy.
The cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head.
Now, go behind the scenes with detectives as they search for clues and expose the ugly truth behind a suburban sex scandal fueled by more than just passion.
This was all about money and greed.
I couldn't get my mind wrapped around it. I thought this stuff only happened in the movies.
May 9th, 2001. It was a peaceful spring morning in beautiful Palm Beach, Florida, when police received a frantic call from a local woman named Kathy Stanek Cousins, who told them her husband Sean was missing.
The report given by Mrs. Cousin was that she hadn't seen her husband in several days.
Kathy told them that Sean was a pilot for Jamaica Airlines and had been scheduled for a flight 2 days ago. But he never checked in.
He hadn't shown up for work, which is very unusual.
He misses a flight, and that's kind of a problem when you're a pilot.
Kathy explained that she and Sean had gotten into a fight the night before he was supposed to fly. So when he stormed out of the house, she assumed he was simply going to the airport.
According to her, he walked out. That was the last time she saw him.
She thought that, okay, he took off and he's going to go straight to Miami to make his flight.
However, Kathy told police that when she checked their closet, she found that he'd left his uniform and passport behind. Kathy said Sean had been suffering from depression, so when almost 48 hours passed without hearing from him, she was afraid something bad might have happened. A fear that grew when Kathy discovered something else that was missing.
When Sean left the house, he took the cash from his last paycheck and Kathy's .45 pistol.
Investigators wondered if Sean Cousins was planning to take his own life. Was it possible that he was still alive? And if he was, where was he? Kathy Stanek was born in Chicago, Illinois to loving parents. Growing up, Kathy was an inquisitive child who craved adventure. And her first opportunity to travel would come when her family relocated to sunny Palm Beach, Florida. But the city's beaches and nightlife weren't enough for young Kathy. She wanted to see more of the world. And she finally got a chance to satisfy her wanderlust after high school, when she landed a job as a flight attendant for Jamaica Airlines.
Air Jamaica at the time was a huge and popular airline in South Florida. Pilots often, they were really well paid.
And it didn't take Kathy long to catch the eye of one of the airline's handsome young pilots, 29-year-old Sean Cousins.
Sean was this good-looking guy in a pilot's uniform, flying to Jamaica every week and making a lot of money doing it.
She was a beautiful woman. He was attracted to her intensely, and, you know, their relationship started.
Kathy and Sean felt an instant connection that quickly led to romance. There was only one problem. Sean was a married man.
He told Kathy his marriage was basically over, but that it was a complicated situation.
He may have been in the process of divorce, but he wasn't just free. He had 5 children.
Although Kathy knew the adulterous affair was wrong, she'd already fallen in love with Sean and took him at his word that he was in the process of a divorce. As far as she was concerned, she'd met the man of her dreams and was willing to do anything to be with him.
This man seemed like a dream come true. He was a pilot. He probably talked about all his travels, and she felt she was going to have a life of adventure and excitement.
Kathy's persistence eventually paid off. After a few years of seeing each other in secret, Sean's divorce was finalized. He and Kathy were married days later.
Once Sean decided he wanted to spend the rest of his life with Kathy, he didn't waste any time getting started.
And the newlyweds began their new life together in style. Sean bought Kathy an expensive home in the gated community of Palm Beach Gardens. Sean's salary meant Kathy no longer had to work full-time as a flight attendant. Instead, she took a job at a flower shop, planning to travel with Sean whenever his schedule allowed.
There's some glamour in that life, and your spouse is going to great cities, but she wasn't going with him all the time, obviously.
But Kathy soon discovered that being a pilot's wife wasn't everything she'd hoped it would be.
The reality set in that she was alone a lot. He's traveling, she's by herself. It wasn't this romantic picture that she had at the beginning.
Kathy found herself spending most of her time alone and lonely. And whenever Sean did come home, it seemed all he wanted from Kathy was quick sex before he left again on another trip. All of the romance had completely drained out of their relationship.
Kathy was feeling neglected, I'm by myself, and I'm lonely, and maybe she's feeling not pretty enough anymore.
Kathy began to resent the way Sean was treating her, but she wasn't quite ready to give up the life of privilege being a pilot's wife provided.
She felt trapped in a marriage where she couldn't get out of it. She wanted to go out and have a good time.
Kathy didn't know what she was going to do, but in the meantime, she was in desperate need of love, affection, and most of all, excitement. And she would find all three in the strong arms of her handsome next-door neighbor. Timothy Coyle was a 34-year-old cable company employee from Chicago, Illinois, who'd relocated to Palm Beach with his wife, Deborah, a few months before.
My mom moved 5 minutes away from us, and we just kind of like had a nice little family and relationship going.
But that would all change when Sean and Kathy Cousins moved in across the street. The two young couples quickly discovered they had a lot in common.
They invited us over to have drinks by the pool, and they grilled, or they would come and, over to our house, just neighbors once in a while getting together.
But with Sean's frequent flights taking him away from home, Kathy spent more and more time alone with their new friends.
Kathy goes over there when Sean's away and gets to know Tim and his wife.
Kathy immediately liked Tim. He was handsome and funny, and he was incredibly charming. It wasn't long before Kathy realized she had a crush on her new neighbor, though she tried her best to ignore it. But Kathy was also bored and lonesome, feeling she couldn't help but share with Tim and Deborah one night over wine.
She proceeds to tell them just how lonely she is in that house all by herself.
Kathy confessed she felt scared to be left home alone, sometimes for days at a time, while Sean was on a trip. So being a good neighbor, Tim made Kathy a friendly offer.
Tim said, well, if you ever need anything, if something happens, you could always just, call us. We're right across the street.
But as the night wore on, Kathy noticed the way Tim was watching her, and she began to suspect there was more to his offer than just a neighborly gesture, even though Tim's wife didn't pick up on the signals.
I guess I was really naive because I didn't suspect anything was going on. I was so in denial. I didn't want to believe that was happening.
After that night, Kathy couldn't stop thinking about Tim. And a few days later, when his wife was running errands, Kathy took Tim up on his offer to keep her company. Once they were alone, neither could resist the temptation to give in to the passion they both felt for one another. But one stolen afternoon of lust wouldn't be enough. Kathy and Tim began having an impassioned affair. But the couple's bond wasn't just sexual. Kathy was becoming obsessed with Tim. Unlike Sean, Tim made Kathy feel both wanted and needed.
She had this neighbor flattering her, and she found that exciting. That was the appeal.
I mean, how sexy does that sound? You know, she has this great guy who's always there for her. He's not flying away like her husband.
Tim was just as consumed with Kathy, and living right next door, the lovers were able to continue their clandestine love affair, with his wife none the wiser.
They live across the street. He could go there and come home again, and his wife might not even realize where he's been.
However, keeping the affair a secret from Kathy's husband, Sean, was a different story. After getting the affection and excitement she'd been missing with Sean, Kathy couldn't bring herself to have sex with him anymore. And after Kathy turned him down a few times, Sean became suspicious.
At some point, he thought maybe she was having an affair. He got some signs, he got suspicious, and he was probably hoping that it was false.
So one morning, Sean decided to put his theory to the test. He lied to Kathy about his schedule and told her he was leaving on a flight. A couple of hours later, he returned home to find her in the arms of her lover, Tim Coyle.
He popped up unexpectedly, and there she was with the neighbor.
Coming up, investigators wonder whether finding out about his wife's affair had driven Sean to take desperate action.
They've got to be wondering if his talk about suicide wasn't just talk after all.
And as the search for the missing pilot continues, police make a disturbing discovery.
A body was found in an isolated part of Osceola County in a creek.
Kathy Stanek Cousins was a desperate housewife struggling with the lonely reality of being married to a pilot, until she found solace in the arms of her handsome and charming next-door neighbor, Tim Coyle.
The relationship was very hot and sensual. The sex was exciting.
But their secret affair had been overshadowed by the sudden disappearance of Kathy's husband, Sean. Sean had been scheduled for a flight, but he'd never checked in. And after 48 hours passed with no sign of Sean, Kathy had called the Palm Beach Police Department to file a missing persons report. Kathy explained that her marriage to Sean had been in trouble for months. His prolonged absences had caused them to grow apart, and whenever he came home, they'd wind up getting into a fight.
Their fights were usually about sex. He'd show up and want her to put out, and she expected intimacy.
I'm not a let's have sex with you kind of person. I'd rather much more make love. I just want to feel like a prostitute with my husband.
And Kathy said the problem in their marriage only got worse when Sean found out she'd been having an affair.
He popped up unexpectedly, and there she was with the neighbor. He saw enough to get furious.
Kathy told police she felt terrible about cheating on her husband and immediately ended the affair with Tim. She wanted to reconcile with Sean, and the two of them promised to work on their relationship.
He hands me a note. I realize what I've done to you, and I realize I've mistreated you. I realize I've been not there for you. I love you. I need you. I can't live without you.
But fixing their marriage was easier said than done. Sean's sexual demands continued to make Kathy feel used, and no matter how hard she tried to please him, he didn't trust her not to cheat on him again. Kathy said things had built up to another big fight the Friday before Sean disappeared.
If he doesn't get his gratification through the sex, then you better look out, because the whole world's in trouble if he starts arguing, yelling, screaming, whatever.
Kathy said their fight continued the rest of the weekend, until things finally came to a head on Monday night, and his mood swung suddenly from anger to depression.
And he starts bitching and moaning about how he can't live this way. I don't want him. He doesn't want to be alive.
Kathy told police that Sean stormed out of the house, and she didn't hear from him again until he called around 1:30 a.m.
Sean tells Kathy if she won't take care of him, he's going to find somebody who will.
Because I'm going to find a girl in the bar, and if not, I'll go pay a prostitute. I said, okay, and he hung up on me.
Kathy said she hadn't thought much of her husband's threats at the time. Sean had often said things just to upset her. But when she found out that Sean never showed up for his flight the next morning, she realized something was wrong. Kathy said she called Sean's ex-wife and family, hoping they'd heard from him. But they were just as worried as she was.
They had not heard from him, which was unusual. Even when he goes away on trips, he would touch base with them.
At this point, they're wondering if something happened to him.
And when Kathy discovered that Sean had taken one of their handguns with him, she was afraid he might be intending to take his own life.
When Sean left the house, he took Kathy's .45 pistol. They've got to be wondering if his talk about suicide wasn't just talk after all.
Palm Beach police put out a bolo alert for Sean Cousins. Sean's loved ones prayed he was just in a hotel somewhere recovering from his fight with Kathy. But a call from Osceola County Police would confirm their worst fears. On May 11th, a teenage boy was working on a highway road crew in rural Osceola County, Florida. Deciding to take a break, the teen broke off from the crew and walked down an embankment to a nearby creek, where he noticed something floating in the water. It was the body of a man.
He was face down in the water, arms extended out.
Horrified, the teen immediately called 911, and Osceola County sheriffs rushed to the scene. The body belonged to an unidentified middle-aged man, and from the state of decomposition, it appeared he had been floating in the creek for several days.
His shirt tail was neatly tucked in. Didn't seem like he was any kind of struggle. So we were thinking maybe one of the locals fell in the water, possibly drowned.
But it was soon clear that the victim's death had been anything but accidental.
The cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head.
The body was so badly mangled that police believed at first that they would not be able to make a positive identification. But when investigators searched the man's clothes, they found a wallet containing a driver's license and credit cards.
The driver's license found on the body belonged to 34-year-old Sean Cousins.
When he run his driver's license, we find out he is a missing person out of Palm Beach County.
When the Osceola County sheriffs contacted Palm Beach detectives, they learned that Sean was last seen leaving his home 4 days earlier, on his way to Miami, an hour south of Palm Beach. And from the gunshot wound to his head, it appeared Sean may have followed through on his suicide threat after all.
Maybe he decides to drive out in the middle of nowhere and shoot himself.
Kathy was devastated by the news of her husband's death. But what neither she nor detectives could understand was why would Sean go all the way out to rural Osceola County to kill himself?
It's 100 miles away from where he said he was. He could have driven there, but where's his car?
With little else to go on, detectives hoped an autopsy might shed some more light on what happened to Sean. And in addition to the bullet wound found in Sean's head, the medical examiner discovered something that investigators on the scene hadn't noticed.
As the coroner is examining the body, she notices a second bullet wound in Sean's back.
Which meant Sean's death wasn't a suicide, it was murder. Coming up, investigators learned that Kathy and Sean's marriage was in more trouble than Kathy let on.
Numerous times the family would say that they would see Sean with scratch marks or bruises.
And the affair between Kathy and Tim might not have been over after all.
That further raises the police's suspicions that something is up here.
For months, Kathy Stanek Cousins and Tim Coyle had been cheating on their spouses in an obsessive neighborhood affair. But their secret romance had been overshadowed by tragedy. When Kathy's husband Sean was found shot to death in a rural creek 100 miles away.
The cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head.
When Sean disappeared a few days earlier, he'd taken a handgun with him. and Kathy feared he may be intending to commit suicide. But an autopsy revealed cause of death had been no accident.
The autopsy showed that there were 2 bullet wounds, one in the head and one in the stomach. And that's obviously a tip-off that there was some type of a homicide.
With their missing persons case turning into a murder, the Palm Beach police investigation kicked into high gear. But who would want Sean Cousins dead? The victim's spouse is often the first person homicide detectives look into. And in this case, the revelation that Kathy had been having an affair with the next-door neighbor made them especially interested in speaking with her again. And when police matched the slugs from Sean's body to Kathy's missing .45 caliber handgun, she began to look like an even more likely suspect. But when detectives contacted Kathy, she insisted that she had nothing to do with his death. She said they were working hard to reconcile, and had even gone on a few dates days before he went missing.
While we were waiting for our table, we walked through the store, and they have all those like really cute little cards and stuff. I had picked them out. And I'm sorry for the way I've been. I'm sorry for the way I've treated you. I realize I've ruined the love you had for me. I love you.
The cards Kathy showed investigators confirmed her story. And when police spoke to Sean's mother, she agreed that her son seemed desperate to make the marriage work, against her own advice.
Sean did not want to get divorced, even though people told him, end this marriage, it's not good anymore. I guess he really loved her.
But if Kathy and Sean were both trying to save their marriage, then who else might have wanted him dead? Police didn't have very far to look, since Kathy's affair made her former lover Tim Coyle the next logical suspect. But when detectives went next door to talk to Tim, he denied having anything to do with Sean's death.
He seems more concerned about his wife finding out that he's sleeping with the neighbor.
He was still denying it, and that he was just trying to be her friend. She just lost a husband. He was just brutally killed, and I was supposed to be this, sympathetic neighbor.
However, Tim did have a theory as to what might have happened to Sean Cousins. He told police there were rumors that the Jamaican Airlines pilot had been using his international flights to smuggle drugs. Police investigated Sean's flight records looking for any indication of illegal activity, but were unable to come up with anything to suggest Sean had been the victim of a drug deal gone wrong. Hoping to find new leads, detectives went to Sean's first wife and family, and what they had to tell police was eye-opening. Apparently, before his death, Sean had confided in them that his marriage to Kathy was even rockier than she'd admitted to police.
There was very many incidents told to me by the family where there was altercations between Sean and Kathy.
And according to Sean's family, Sean had told them that Kathy was always the one who assaulted him.
When she would get upset, she would actually attack Sean. Numerous times the family would say that they would see Sean with scratch marks or bruises.
Sean's family told detectives that the biggest fight of all had taken place the day Sean had come home early to catch Kathy and Tim together.
Sean came home and found Tim in the house. He tells Tim to leave the house. Tim refuses because he says, I'm here as a guest of Kathy, not of you. And then an altercation occurs between the two.
The two men had begun fighting, and that's when Kathy went and grabbed a gun from her bedroom and ordered Sean to leave her lover alone.
That only makes Sean angrier. There's a big standoff, and she tries to hold him off while she calls 911.
At some point, she hands the gun over to Tim to keep it on Sean while she's on the phone with the sheriff's office.
Sean was arrested for assault. Kathy quickly dropped the charges, but the damage had already been done. Sean's family told investigators that the incident had only made things between Sean and Kathy worse, and they were afraid that this time she might have finally gone through with her threat to kill him. Armed with this new information, police paid Kathy a visit, but she flatly denied the family's accusations and made it clear she had no interest in assisting in their investigation.
When we meet her, she's in the company of an attorney. And at that point, the attorney plainly told us that she would not be talking to us.
Although Kathy was completely within her rights, detectives were surprised by her sudden change in attitude. Now, instead of a grieving widow, she looked more like a woman with something to hide.
A wife who loved her husband should be willing to talk to the police till the end of time to get to the bottom of this.
Kathy may not have been willing to help with the investigation, but when police canvassed the neighborhood, they finally got the break they've been looking for. A neighbor claimed she'd heard gunshots coming from the cousin's home on the night of the murder.
This alleged witness claimed that she heard gunshots in the middle of the night, which would have been the time that the alleged crime occurred.
The time of the gunshots matched the coroner's estimated time of death, which was enough for police to secure a warrant to search the cousin's home.
They thoroughly inspected the victim's home, and if there were 2 gunshots fired at close range, you would expect to find some evidence of that.
But they were unable to find any traces of violence. Investigators seemed to have hit a dead end. There was no physical evidence linking Kathy or Tim to Sean's death. But letters and emails recovered in the search of the cousin's home suggested that Kathy and Tim's affair might not have ended after all. They found numerous love letters and emails between the two, making it sound like Kathy was still very much in love with Tim.
She wanted to be with him and only him. She was tired of playing the happy little wife and wanted it resolved.
They were madly in love and were making plans to be together. So that further raises the police's suspicions. Wait a minute, something is up here.
The lovers' emails also contain links to websites that show Tim Coyle thought of himself as much more than just a mild-mannered satellite installer.
We found a website where he painted himself as Major Tim Coley, and he was experienced in urban warfare.
He considered himself a mercenary, that he was out to do whatever needed to be done in order to get the mission done.
However, detectives found no record of Tim Coyle holding a rank in any of these armed services. It seemed Tim was little more than a daydreamer role-playing on the internet.
He wanted to portray himself that he was a badass, so to speak.
Just painting himself somebody he was not.
But was it possible that Tim had decided to make his mercenary fantasies a reality? Could he have killed Sean in an attempt to have Kathy all to himself? Coming up, new evidence suggests a possible motive for the murder.
The insurance policy went from $500,000 to $1 million.
Kathy Stanek Cousins and Tim Coyle were two neighbors in the throes of an impassioned, adulterous affair. But when Kathy's husband Sean was found murdered, she and Tim had graduated from cheating spouses to possible murder suspects. Of particular interest to police was Tim's secret internet persona, where he billed himself as a deadly soldier of fortune.
He considered himself a mercenary. He was out to do whatever needed to be done.
But did that include killing his lover's husband? To find out, police decided to take a closer look at Tim Coyle, and they learned some suspicious information when they spoke with his wife, Deborah. Apparently, just a few days after Sean Cousins' murder, Tim had called his wife in a panic.
He had taken my van, and he told me he was buying pool chemicals. And so he calls me up, freaking out that chlorine spilled and that he has to rip the carpeting out of my brand new van.
Tim told Deborah he was taking the van to a local dealership to have the carpets replaced. Deborah agreed. But when the repair technician opened the back of the van, they immediately noticed something strange.
Carpet is gone, which they say usually people that want to replace their carpet, they don't tear the carpet up. they let the people do it.
And in the floorboards, the dealership technician discovered something even more troubling.
They also found traces of what appeared to be bloodstains.
That just was not sitting well with the dealership, and they called the police.
Palm Beach police immediately dispatched a team of forensic specialists to take the van into evidence and conduct a thorough search. They collected samples of blood found on the floorboards of the van and sent them to the crime lab for testing.
They were able to determine that the blood in that automobile was in fact the blood of Sean Cousins.
For detectives, the blood evidence was a major step forward in the case against Tim Coyle.
It put Sean Cousins in that van, either hurt, bleeding, or somewhere where his blood was transferred to.
But while blood splatter proved that Sean had been inside of Tim's van, it wasn't enough to prove that Tim had committed the murder. Police needed more evidence before they could make an arrest, and they found it in Tim's cell phone records. With the help of Tim's service provider, detectives were able to track Tim's whereabouts on the day Sean Cousins had disappeared.
A cell phone acts like a GPS. So that was giving us a timeline where he was at what particular time.
And the GPS map created by Tim's phone showed that on that day, Tim had driven from Sean and Kathy's house all the way to the exact creek where Sean Cousins' body had been found.
They could now actually prove that Tim Coyle drove the body after the murder from West Palm Beach to Osceola County and dumped it.
Detectives knew the cell phone evidence, combined with the traces of blood, was enough to put Tim Coyle behind bars. But before making any arrests, they wanted to determine how much Kathy knew and whether she was involved as well.
Has she just been covering for Tim, or was she a part of this?
Once again, Tim's cell phone records provided a clue investigators hoped would unravel the rest of the story.
A number was being called up north to Chicago, right around that time frame where we suspect maybe the homicide occurred.
The phone number belonged to a friend of Tim's back in Chicago, a fellow self-styled soldier of fortune named Daniel Bakovic. Like Tim, Daniel billed himself on the internet as a deadly mercenary for hire. And in addition to their phone calls, the two men had also exchanged a chain of suspicious emails in the weeks leading up to Sean Cousins' murder.
There was some communication to Daniel Bakovic. I have a mission that we have to do, just kind of like code for maybe what's really happening, and that's to cover up a homicide.
Detectives traveled to Chicago to find out what Daniel Bakovic had to say, and discovered he was more than willing to talk.
When we got there, he kind of said, hey, I figured someone would be finally contacting me about what's happened in Florida.
Daniel confirmed that Tim had tried to contract him to kill Sean Cousins. But Tim wasn't the one who was supposed to pay him. Kathy was.
Kathy's going to give him $500,000 after she cashes out her husband's $1 million life insurance policy.
It appeared the lovers had been just as motivated by greed as their obsessive love affair when they plotted to kill Sean Cousins.
$1 million is a lot of money, and that would be a motive for somebody to receive $1 million by killing someone.
Daniel told investigators that the plan was for him to ambush Sean while he and Kathy were at the movies.
Daniel Bakovic was supposed to kill Sean and made it look like a robbery.
But when it came time to fly to Florida, Daniel decided not to go through with it. He said he'd expected to receive an angry call from Tim, but didn't hear from him until more than 24 hours later, on the night of Sean Cousins' murder.
About 2:16 in the morning, Tim Coyle contacted him and on the phone, and he's kind of excited. He said, I can't believe she did it. And I need you down here now. And he's like, what are you talking about? And then all of a sudden he abruptly said, I'll call you back.
Tim never called back. But Daniel had assumed that the she Tim was referring to was Kathy Stanek Cousins. And she'd gotten tired of waiting for Daniel to show up and kill Sean.
That's what he interpreted, that it was Kathy who had killed Sean Cousins.
Between the evidence of the undying love affair between Kathy and Tim, the blood traces found in Tim's car, and the testimony of Daniel Bakovic, detectives had enough to arrest the lovers for the murder of Sean Cousins. But even behind bars, Kathy and Tim both continued to claim their innocence. And with no direct physical evidence tying Kathy to the crime, investigators knew their best shot at convictions was to get the lovers to turn on one another. They decided to try their luck with Tim first.
They had a stronger case against Tim. They had the blood in the van. They had some of his email correspondence to the mercenary up in Chicago.
Sensing he was poised to take the fall for the murder, Tim finally cracked and agreed to cut a deal with prosecutors.
We spoke to the prosecutor, and Mr. Coyle decided that it was in his best interest to perhaps take an offer from the state.
Tim agreed to plead guilty to a 10-year manslaughter charge in exchange for his testimony against Kathy Cousins.
With his plea deal in place, Tim confessed that he and Kathy had enlisted Daniel Bakovic's help in killing Sean. Their reason, to get Kathy's husband out of the picture so he and Kathy could finally be together.
We know now that was the motive. Her wanting to live the rest of her life with Tim. Sean's out of the way, and they've got $1 million policy.
But when Daniel didn't follow through with their plan, Kathy had gotten impatient, as Tim discovered after receiving an urgent text message later that night.
It's from Kathy, and it just says for him to come over quick.
Tim said he rushed over to Kathy's house and found her in the garage. She was standing over Sean with a gun.
Sean had been shot in the stomach and was bleeding.
Tim said Kathy tried to get him to finish the job. But despite Tim's claims of being a mercenary, he said he couldn't bring himself to pull the trigger.
She gave him the gun to finish it off, but he chickened out.
However, Kathy had no problem doing it herself.
Mrs. Cousins shot her husband in the head.
Tim told police that at first, he was horrified to witness Sean's murder. But he also realized that Kathy had done what they both agreed was necessary. She'd killed Sean to keep their love alive. And as his adrenaline kicked in, his shock quickly turned to lust.
Sean was dying or dead in the garage. They had wine, and then they had celebration sex, and this is the people that they were dealing with there.
Tim could have called the police, but instead, they both chose to be sexual together. It was like sealing their fate together. They were partners in this crime.
They were cementing and solidifying the fact that they could finally be together without any interruption. But it is the sickest way to do that.
And after the couple made love, Tim said they loaded Sean's body into Tim's van.
They drove until they found a desolate area where no one would hopefully find the body, and that's where they dumped it.
It was a shocking story, and fit with the circumstantial evidence the prosecutors had already assembled against the couple. But would Tim's testimony alone be enough to convict Kathy? Or would the lack of hard proof against the cheating widow lead to her acquittal? Coming up, as Kathy's murder trial gets underway, the state's case looks like it may crumble under scrutiny.
They didn't find any forensics. They didn't have the weapon. All they had was the wife having an affair.
When Kathy Stanek Cousins fell in love with her handsome next-door neighbor, Tim Coyle, she thought she'd finally found the passion and excitement that had been missing from her life. But the clandestine affair had come to a shocking end when Tim confessed to helping Kathy kill her husband. And she found herself on the hook for murder. On May 19, 2003, Kathy's murder trial began. Prosecutors argued she'd killed her husband for both love and greed.
She wanted $1 million of life insurance proceeds. She wanted to get rid of her husband, and she sought to accomplish both in one fell swoop.
Kathy's defense insisted that the state couldn't prove their charge of first-degree murder. They had no hard evidence to prove Tim's story that Kathy shot and killed her husband in their garage.
So it would have been some type of blood splatter, even a tiny amount. Forensics would have picked it up. So they didn't have that, they didn't have the weapon. All they had was the wife having an affair.
But the state believed that Tim's willingness to implicate himself in the murder proved he was telling the truth.
From the defense perspective, we will argue that their truth is whatever they need to find somebody guilty. I think in this case, they had to make an evaluation. Did his testimony, was it consistent with the physical evidence that they did have and the circumstantial evidence that they did have? And they ultimately made the call that it did.
Throughout the trial, Kathy appeared calm and confident until her lover was called to the stand.
I'm sure it was devastating for her. Tim sort of lives up to his own created persona. He treated this love affair as a mercenary would. You know, he put himself first and sold Kathy out.
The jury hung on every word as Tim Coyle described Sean's desperate final moments, as well as the lusty celebration that followed his murder.
His testimony just tied up the whole case and gave the jury an eyewitness account in very graphic terms.
It left little room for the jury to see Kathy as anything more than a cold-blooded killer who showed no remorse. But as the jury deliberated, Tim's plea bargain gave them cause for concern. He would only spend 10 years in prison, which left them reluctant to give his co-conspirator a more severe sentence.
The jury knows that he's going to get X amount, and they may feel, why should we give her that much more? So I believe that's what they took into consideration.
So instead of first-degree murder, they shocked everyone by finding Kathy guilty of the lesser charge of manslaughter.
She got 15 years in prison.
It was a surprisingly light sentence for those who believed Kathy had executed her husband in cold blood. And while his killers had been brought to justice, Sean Cousins' family believed Kathy deserved a stronger punishment for committing the ultimate act of betrayal.
The family wanted to see Kathy go away for life for orchestrating such a heinous crime.
It's crossing a line. It's just letting your emotions take over and not worrying about the consequences in that moment.
In the end, Kathy's passion and greed destroyed more than just one life. It also destroyed the lives of everyone around her. A harsh reality that Tim's ex-wife Deborah Coyle has to face every day.
I loved him, but I was betrayed by him. You know, I remember the man that I thought I married, that I loved, and that wasn't him. If she never came into our lives, none of this obviously would have happened.